Hi, my name is Mai, and this is a video for the assignment Enrichment Activity number 2, Defining Race. So the first question regarding my comfort level on discussing race with my peers, I usually feel pretty comfortable talking about race or issues regarding race because I have some experience, especially when I was living in Japan, of being sort of outsider because I'm biracial, and over there, like 98% of the population pretty much looks the same, out like black hair, black eyes, or brown eyes, and same skin color, but I looked really different. So coming to America, I was really surprised, like the variety of race and how people looked. We all look so different. So talking in the discussion group also, I felt pretty comfortable sharing my own story and responding to Joel's post. I do get a little bit uncomfortable when I have to talk about other races that is not Caucasian or either Asian. And even if it's Asian, if it's like Chinese or Korean or Filipino, or anything that's not Japanese, then I get a little bit I feel like I don't really have the right to talk about it because I don't know what their experience is. I mean, I can listen to it and respond to it, but so and I think in America, I think there's sort of a stigma regarding like if you're not that race, then you can't really talk about it. So that's kind of how I feel about that. So regarding how racism affects other people versus how it affects me, when I lived in Japan, I was conscious about race, but not really, because every other person around me was just Japanese, except for my dad. And so I didn't really think about race at all, really, other than when people called me like a foreigner, then I kind of felt hurt, but that's about it. And so I never really experienced anything that was racist. But I guess coming to America, I see how racism affects a lot of people of color, and I see how harmful it is, and I didn't really see how big of an issue it was. And then now that I know what's going on in America and what has been going on for the past 400 years, there's a lot to focus. And I also thought about how racism is in Japan, but I think in Japan it's more kind of kept on the low key. Like, people will talk behind your back, but it's not really, they won't come up to your face and call you a slur, whereas America, it's kind of like if you're racist, it's pretty obvious. So the definition for race, I put race as a physical feature. I put mainly skin color, but also like the texture of your hair color, your bones, your face structure, maybe like your height, your weight even, because that can be different. And I think a lot of people also wrote it like that, the physical feature, especially focusing on skin color. Racism, I think we also, our group has pretty much the same definition. I wrote when someone excludes a person or segregates them or bullies them based on their race. And I think, a lot of people agree with that definition. And then anti-racism is when you actively, I put when people support or advocate for the end of racism in our society. And then an example was the Black Lives Matter movement that happened last summer. Yeah, our definitions are pretty similar, I think. Oh, the only thing that was sort of caught my eye is that Claudette, who's in our group, defined race as someone who, or as a group of people who come from the same country that share cultural heritage, which I agree to an extent, but I think race doesn't have to share a cultural heritage because, I'm a little bit different from the Japanese race because I have some Caucasian blood in me, but I still come from the same cultural heritage, so I was a little bit confused on that. But, I mean, I get what she means. Okay, so completing the following sentence. Racism in America today is a huge problem. Well, I think it's always been a problem, but I think it became really huge and apparent after Donald Trump was elected, and he was just saying racist comments regarding African Americans, or when the COVID thing happened, the Kung flu and then the China virus. Like, I think that really stirred up. Saw a lot of problems with race, and there were attacks on Asian Americans and Asians, and then the police brutality against African Americans and other people of color. Yeah, I think it's always been a problem, but like these past, well, ever since I moved to America, which was 5 years ago, I think it's became like a really an issue that we need to focus on more. And now that I think Greg Abbott, he passed a law saying that schools are prohibited to teaching critical race theory, and I think that's a real problem, because when you go into the real world, there's so many issues regarding not even the real world, just even in school too. And then to prohibit like teaching about race, it just doesn't really make sense. So the question, is race a construct? I think it is, especially after watching that TED Talk in Module 1, like the first week, of how she was talking about race is just a social construct. I really did resonate with that video, and I agree with a lot of points of that. I think it's more accurate to use, like she was saying in a video, like terms ethnicity or nationality or something like that, rather than just race, because people can be mixed, they can be biracial, they can be, especially like I think people who have African descent but live in, let's say, Brazil, they're Brazilian, but Brazilian with African descent, but they're called like just blacks. So, and that's their race, Or I always thought when someone's biracial, they tend to take the minority race, if that makes sense. Like, if someone's half African American and half, let's say, like Irish American, then, right, they're 50-50 or 100-100. I don't like to say half and half, but, right, so part of them, they have equal amounts of both, like ethnicity or cultural heritage. But for some reason, when you're half black or half Hispanic or half Asian, then you get grouped as Asian or black or Hispanic, which I thought was always weird. Like, no, you're both sides, not just one. And I think Trevor Noah, he had like this show where he was talking about, because he's half Scottish and half South African. And then so he circled his race, when he moved to America, he circled his race as white. And then the lady told him, no, you're black. So, yeah, it kind of made me think about that one right there. In the group discussion, well, I think we just all posted our definition of race, racism, and anti-racism. And then some of us shared a personal story, like me, when I was living in Japan, and then Joelle. Yes, that was about it. So, what was the question? Was there something to discuss in the conversation that you were just learning for the first time? Not really. I guess maybe learning how people define race is sort of different, but that's about it. So, the actual definition of race, if you look it up on the internet, my source is Wikipedia. It defines it as: a race is a grouping of humans based on shared physical or social qualities into categories generally viewed as distinct by society. The definition for racism, also my source from Wikipedia, is: racism is the belief that groups of humans possess different behavioral traits corresponding to physical appearance and can be divided based on the superiority of one race over another. It may also mean prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against other people because they are of a different ethnicity. The definition for anti-racism, also from Wikipedia, is anti-racism encompasses a range of ideas and political actions which are meant to counter racial prejudice, systematic racism, and the oppression of specific racial groups. So I think those definitions that I found on Wikipedia are more detailed than what I put. But I think race was pretty similar. So was racism and anti-racism. The people in my group, they also pretty much described it as the same thing. But I think Reed said that their definition of race sort of shifted after watching that video in Module 1, the TED Talk. And I agree with that. Yeah, race is sort of a construct, and yeah, I don't really like the way when people describe you as a certain race, because you can be mixed, or like I said earlier, you can be mixed or biracial. So basically the definition that we came up as a group is race is a physical feature that distinguishes us from the rest of the group. Some people included like cultural heritage and such. So there's that. Racism is when you discriminate or against a certain group of people because they are not the same race as you. And I think everyone had the same definition. And then anti-racism is when a group of people or an individual is opposed to the ill treatment or discrimination of either themselves because they're being attacked or other people, so they advocate for others. And yeah, I think in our group we had a pretty peaceful conversation. I don't think there was a lot of back and forth responding, but we agree on the same definitions. It was only Joel's personal story, but I enjoy always talking about other people's experience regarding their cultural background or ethnicity, nationality, such. Thank you for watching this long video.